Welcome, new school board members. My name is Susan Holson. I'm the Director of Education Services for the Vermont School Boards Association. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but you're beginning your school board career during a particularly challenging time and in a very unfamiliar environment. So I especially want to thank you for taking time to watch this video, which outlines the role of a school board and school board members. We'll also touch on the structure of education governance in Vermont. And finally, I'll introduce you to the VSBA, the Vermont School Boards Association, and the services we provide to our members. So what does a school board do, actually? Well, the board's job is to assure that there is a vision for the district and that the district is on the right path to accomplishing that vision. And also oversight of district operations and accountability. But you're not the administrators. The board goes first and last. First, in setting that vision, creating policies, parameters, and setting priorities. All of that provides clarity for your superintendents and administrative teams, which allows them flexibility to lead, manage, and operate the schools and to use their skills and creativity. The last is that you monitor progress and assure that there's appropriate accountability. So the board's job is oversight. First, to set expectations and goals to make sure that every student in the district gets access to high quality education. You also need to make sure that taxpayers, all citizens, including parents, are getting a good return on their investment. And finally, you need to make sure that your operations as a board are efficient, effective, and ethical, because that fosters trust from your community. Here's a quick video created by the Texas Association of School Boards that clearly shows the role and tells the story of the role of a school board.
My name is Rachel, and I'm in the 6th grade. I was invited to go to a school board meeting to get an award, but I didn't know what the school board did. So I asked my grandpa Freddie, since he used to be on the board. He said, well, school boards are kind of like the grandparents of the schools.
They want good things for the students and staff. Even though grandparents aren't always around, we do our best to help you learn and grow. Let me see if I can explain it in another way. Think of the school board team as building a bridge between the community and the schools. They are your voice. Board members listen to parents, community members, school staff, and even the students about their hopes and dreams for their schools. They share these messages with the superintendent and other school leaders, and they advocate for their school district by speaking up for them with other elected officials and within the community. Another important job of the board is to provide direction for the schools. School board members choose a destination for the district. They might like the students to go to Topeka, Kansas, Paris, France, or even Mars. But they don't tell the staff how to get there. They empower the superintendent, staff, and students to choose their path. The board also makes a lot of decisions, like hiring a superintendent. The superintendent is the leader who makes sure the daily operations of the schools run well. The superintendent helps determine the best routes on the map, along with the staff and students. The school board also ensures that resources are in place so that the staff can complete their work and make sure students can reach their destinations. Let's say that the schools want their students to be able to play a musical instrument if they'd like, or fix a car, or understand algebra or other opportunities. The board makes sure that the school district has the money, staff, and materials in the right places at the right time to ensure success. The board and superintendent team help students complete their journey in their local schools and prepare them for the future.
After talking to Grandpa Freddie, I had a much better understanding of what school boards do. They build a bridge so that the community and the schools can communicate, and they set destinations for the schools so that I can reach my goals. The school board looks out for me, just like my grandpa and grandma do.
That's a good overview of the kind of oversight provided by a school board, linking the community and the school district, but not running the schools. You just provide direction to your administration. I want to draw your attention to our website if you haven't already visited. VSBA provides lots of resources to our members to help navigate the work of the board. And we'll talk about the website later, but for right now, I just want to show you where you can find some really important resources. The VSBA has created a proprietary platform, which we call the Essential Work of Vermont School Boards. And there's a toolkit right here on the website that will give you a lot of information and backup resources. It's right here on this section called Toolkits, which you can see. This is just the top of the homepage. There, by the way, are lots of other toolkits in there that you may find interesting, but we'll talk more about that later. So the Essential Work of Vermont School Boards, which, by the way, also has a published version. We have hard copy books, which you can order from that the new member toolkit, and also from that Essential Work of Vermont School Boards toolkit. And it's over 100 pages of resources and guidance on school board work. So when you do navigate to the Essential Work landing page in the toolkit, it looks something like this. There are 6 domains included in that toolkit, and we'll go through them very briefly now, one at a time, to introduce you to the resource. Usually we follow this up with a lot of live training for new board members. Right now that's all on hold, but stay in touch with us because we'll keep you posted as we reschedule and redesign that, which all is really a deeper dive into these 6 domains. So let's start with the first topic, engaging the community and establishing a vision. A school district or supervisory union vision is an aspirational statement of what we want for our students and our district, as depicted in that short video we just looked at. It should reflect the values of your community, so input from a variety of stakeholders is important to assure that everybody buys in and supports that vision. And by stakeholders, I mean parents, district staff and faculty, administration, students, and importantly, non-parent taxpayers who make up roughly 80% of the state's voting population. Of course, they're the ones who are voting on your budgets. So the first power of a school board defined in Vermont statutes is the duty to determine the educational policies of the district. Board policies describe what should be done to achieve the district's vision and are written as a broad statement of intent. Procedures or interpretations of how it should be done are operational, and those should be left to the administration. And then answering the question of how well are we doing it, that's the board's. Again, we've talked about the oversight and monitoring responsibilities. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the school board's role is probably the partnership with the superintendent. The board represents the community and sets the vision and goals, and the administration implements progress toward that vision. By Vermont statute, the superintendent is in fact the chief executive officer of the school district. So to review, the board sets the goals and assures there's good working relationship with the superintendent. The superintendent's role is defined, as I just said, as the CEO, the chief executive officer of the district or supervisory union, and all districts within an SU. They're responsible for all operational and educational leadership. Now, of course, in most districts, they have teams to whom they delegate some of those responsibilities, but ultimately they are accountable. And finally, the principal provides instructional leadership and manages the day-to-day school operations. They are accountable only to the superintendent, and the principals rely on the direction, action plans, priorities, and initiatives established at the superintendent's level, whether that for your district is a district or a supervisory union. And I won't say this often enough, but your job as a board, boards assure that schools are well run, but boards don't run the schools. So to employ a well-qualified and capable superintendent, a board needs to be in a position to assure mutual accountability between the board and the superintendent. So the board is accountable to provide clear direction and set priorities for the superintendent, and similarly, the superintendent for the principal. The superintendent is then accountable to deliver on the priorities of the board. And again, the principal is accountable to the superintendent at the building level. So before becoming a board member, you were probably paid a lot of attention to the education budgets you were asked to vote on every year. Working with administration, the board develops that budget, informs the community about the financial needs of the district, and once the budget passes, the board provides financial oversight to make sure money is being used appropriately. So what does that really look like? Well, in budgeting, the board needs to make sure that there are adequate resources to advance the vision. It always stems back to the vision. Administrators determine the allocations to accomplish the goals with board guidance and ultimately board approval. The board then provides high-level financial oversight on behalf of the taxpayers to make sure that finances are being managed according to the budget. As already discussed numerous times, one of the board's critical roles in making sure the district is moving towards its vision and is on track to meet its goals. What does that look like? Well, there are many areas that should be monitored on a regular basis, including progress towards the goals and the visions. That's probably the biggest one, which would include student outcomes, financial oversight, adherence to and the appropriateness of policies, and then self-monitoring board operations to make sure that the meetings are efficient, that the board is operating ethically and, as I said earlier, legally, and also to review the superintendent on an annual basis. The superintendent, meanwhile, is tasked with providing the appropriate evidence of progress to the board. And that's usually a collaborative process as to which data the board should be seeing and on what time frame, in what time frame. The last domain of the essential work of Vermont school boards, the platform that we've developed, relates to board operations. Boards are public bodies governed by Vermont law and should adhere to the highest standards of ethical operations. When it comes to board operations, it's really important to differentiate from school district operations, which, as I've said several times, are managed by the superintendent. Back in the VSBA web toolkit, there's an extensive section on board operations, and I really encourage you to spend some time there and visit all the resources that are listed there, because there are education laws that we are all bound by as publicly elected officials. In general, though, it's fair to say that the board needs to monitor itself to assure that the meetings are well organized and that members have a responsibility to be engaged and informed about the board's work when you show up. For an even deeper dive on some of the board operations issues, you could also take a look at the board chair toolkit on the VSBA website. As leaders of the boards, chairs are often the ones who oversee board operations, with the assistance, of course, of all the board members. One thing new board members are often confronted with before you're really ready is what to do when someone complains about something having to do with the schools, whether they're unhappy with their child's teacher or they have issues with the grounds or anything else. Although it's not necessarily relevant while we're all under the governor's stay home, stay safe order, neighbors are likely to approach you in public places like the post office, the dump, or grocery store with issues about their child's schooling or the skyrocketing tax rates. There are a few important things to remember before responding. First, districts have policies in place to handle complaints from the public. So be familiar with the policy in your district and explain it to the person who's raising the issue. Most policies outline a chain of command that goes something like this. If it's an in-school issue, the parent needs to bring it to the teacher first. If they've already done that, or they feel like they can't because it's too sensitive, the next step is to go to the principal. If they haven't gotten satisfaction from the principal after they've gone there, then they can go up the line to the superintendent. For the few issues that remain unresolved at that point, the person can officially bring it to the board as a public body, but not a single board member. And as soon as you can, you should let your board chair know that you've received this complaint. The chair will, in turn, also advise the superintendent. If you feel it's appropriate, you can follow up with the person who complained, but only to make sure they've gotten a satisfactory response. Do not go into any details about how the issue was resolved or who said what to whom, because ultimately, by statute, the board is the final level of appeal, which means we're actually granted semi-judicial powers to resolve issues. And the only way you can do that is if you are really objective. So if you've been trying to fix something, you really can't be impartial while acting in this very important aspect of board responsibility. So here are some suggestions for new board members that have been gathered from seasoned veterans and best practices over the years. Be a constructive board member who helps the board get its work done. There will be differences of opinion, but those should not be shut down, and they should not shut down progress. There are effective ways to work through those differences. Avoid conflict of interest or perception of conflict of interest. The community needs to trust that the board has all students and all taxpayers' best interests in mind, and board members also need to trust each other. So the board is required by state law to have a conflict of interest policy in place, and it's incumbent on every board member to really understand the parameters of that and to pay attention to it. Upholding the law and ethical standards will affect the credibility of your board and, frankly, all boards. So it's really, again, an important aspect of your work. We recommend that all boards adopt a code of ethics and take it seriously. There is on the website a VSBA model, which can be adapted, and then it needs to become a commitment. And while I'm mentioning that, there is on the website under the resources tab a model policy manual, which many districts rely on as a starting point for writing their own policies. As you become more involved in board work, you'll probably hear a lot about education law in Vermont. So here's a brief, quick rundown of the key players and their roles in structuring the state's education. So at the legislature, there are education committees in both the House and the Senate, and they introduce bills that may eventually become laws if approved by both houses and then signed by the governor. The courts are charged with interpreting those laws relative to the Vermont Constitution when anybody is questioning or challenging them. The governor executes the laws that have been passed by the legislature. The State Board of Education, which is established by Vermont statute, supervises and manages the agency of education and the public school system, including licensing of teachers and administrators, student performance standards and qualifications, disbursement of funds, and equal access for all Vermont students to a quality education. Finally, the Agency of Education carries out the work as determined by the state board, and then the local boards pick up at the oversight of their local districts. Some Vermont school districts are part of a supervisory union and share a superintendent and many supervised services like special education. The extent of shared services is in part determined locally, and it varies from SU to SU, but each local district still has its own school board. So as you can see in this model, there are 3 districts in this particular supervisory union, and one district is consolidated. It has 3 schools operating in one district, and then the other 2 schools, because they have different grade accommodations, are each their own district. But in some cases, multiple schools are part of a single district, officially referred to as a supervisory district by Act 46 consolidation, or SD, which is also often referred to simply as school district. These districts have a single board that oversees the whole district, including all of the schools that fall in that governance structure. So switching gears now, let me talk to you a little bit about the Vermont School Boards Association. This is the vision statement. We're a nonprofit association owned by the members. Most supervisory unions and supervisory districts in the state are members, meaning our services and resources are available to all of the board members in all of those member districts. We are governed by a 24-member board of directors who are elected for 2-year terms at our annual regional meetings, where all members are invited to attend and vote on your regional representative. There are two regional representatives from each of 11 regions statewide. They're geographic. We also have a president and, when applicable, a past president who serves for 1 year after their term is up. All VSBA board members, because in our bylaws, are currently serving as school board members in local districts. And we really invite you to become involved with VSBA. You might not be ready for our board yet, but get involved with us. Board members feel very strongly about it. As you can see, our vision is to support you, our members, in your capacity as trustees for public education. And we do that in 2 ways. Let me introduce you to the VSBA staff. Sue Siglowski is the executive director. She's also an attorney and is able to provide guidance on Vermont education law. She does not replace having your own attorney in your district for specific situations. Sandra Cameron is our director of public policy. She is at the legislature every day during session and monitoring their activities and reporting back to you on things that are relevant. I've already introduced myself, Director of Education Services. My role is to provide board development and other supports for the membership as you go through your job. And Carrie Lamb is our glue. She's our Director of Operations. Carrie's been with VSBA for over 20 years, and there's nothing she doesn't know. You will get to know Carrie. So I said we had a sort of a 2-part mission. First, we're often called upon by policymakers to provide input to public policy decisions. Staff members and VSBA board members often testify during the legislative process as new laws are being crafted and modified. And those testimonies, by the way, are all available to you through the VSBA website under advocacy. We also strive to keep our members aware of any public policy activity that affects education. So we issue a weekly education legislative report during the legislative session and also contact members directly when issues arise where your input might be valuable. Both of these communications come through email, so please make sure we have current contact information for you and an email address that you do check regularly. The second piece of fulfilling our vision is to provide direct service to boards and board members. Staff members are always available by phone or email to answer questions or offer guidance. We also offer regular professional development for board members to help navigate the challenges boards face. And that includes live workshops, monthly webinars, which are always on the first Thursday of every month from noon to 1 and available thereafter in recorded version. We have regional meetings, as I mentioned earlier, around the state. We notify you well in advance of those. And our annual conference is in late October. It's a 2-day event that involves workshops and keynotes and also encompasses the annual VSBA business meeting. We are able to help your district plan and facilitate annual retreats and other special meetings that you do. You'll get regular email updates from us on issues of importance in Vermont education. So please, I'm going to second pitch here, make sure we have good current contact information for you. Our website is really rich with resources, like all the archived webinars, the model policy manual, multiple toolkits for various occasions and audiences, podcast subscriptions, and lots more. So please take some time. You got time on your hands now, right? So take some time and explore vtvsba.org. We're also available for a lot of various consulting services, superintendent searches, superintendent evaluations, strategic planning, etc., and collective bargaining supports. And we also send out a regular member newsletter 3 times a year and publish the educational law book, which everybody refers to as the Green Book because it's been green for as long as anybody can remember. And as I mentioned, the essential work of Vermont School Board's Workbook. So I'm coming to the end here, but I want to just remind you that VSBA is your association and we want to be your go-to resource. Please reach out to any one of us if you have questions or you need guidance or just feel like making sure you're on solid footing. We look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to personally meeting you. I'm sorry we didn't have the chance right now as you begin your service, but we'll be around. So we'll stay in touch with you. Thanks so much.